I'm G and welcome back to my series of Bridal Bites on Brideas. In this episode, I'm going to add a touch of sophistication to your wedding meal with a fillet of beef served with a warm beetroot and goat cheese salad. So I've got a fillet of beef here. Now it is an expensive cut, but you don't need a lot because we're going to slice it quite thinly. The best thing to do when you're cooking beef is to put the oil on the beef and not in the frying pan, because if you put it in the frying pan you're going to get loads of smoke and it's going to spit everywhere. So put a little bit of oil onto the beef and then you want to grind over loads of mixed peppercorns. Pink peppercorns are delicious, they're slightly warmer than the black, but these are a nice mixture of green, white, black and pink. Now it might look like a lot, but by the time you've fried it and you've cut it thinly, you're only going to get a little bit. There you go. And then a nice pinch of salt. And then you just want to roll the meat in that, picking up all the peppercorns and the salt. And then I've got a pan that's stonkingly hot. The point is you want to sear this on the outside so you get loads of colour, and the colour equals flavour, but you don't want to cook it all the way through because we're going to do that in the oven because I want to serve it nice and pink. So really, really hot pan, and it can go in. Now if you're doing this for your wedding, you'll probably need a whole fillet of beef, but I would cut it down into 2 or 3 smaller sections so it's easier to pan fry. And what you want to do is make sure that the surface area is completely cooked and coloured. So both the ends as well will need to be browned because that's where the bacteria is on beef, and that's why you can eat it pink because there's no bacteria on the inside. Whereas chicken, the bacteria is all the way through it. It's hence why you need to cook it all the way through. So that's got a lovely bit of colour. I'm just going to keep going all the way round, then do both ends. So now that's got a nice colour all over, I'm actually going to cook it through in the oven. Now these pans can go into the oven, but if you don't have heat-proof frying pans, just pop it onto a baking tray and pop it in. And this bit is going to take between 8 and 10 minutes. And the way I'm going to know it's cooked, because it's a big bit of beef, if you press it like you would a steak, it's quite difficult to judge. I'm going to put a sharp knife or a skewer into the centre, and if I touch it and it feels lukewarm, it's what I want. That will take it to, once it's rested, to sort of medium rare. So I'm going to pop that in the oven, it'll take about 8 to 10 minutes. So to go with the beef, I'm going to do a warm beetroot salad. Now, I cannot be bothered to cook beetroot from raw, and you certainly won't want to be doing that on the day before your wedding. So I've got some little beetroots that have been pre-cooked. They're not the pickled ones, but they're the vacuum-packed ones. And I'm just going to add a little bit of oil into a hot pan. And the dressing that I'm going to make for the salad is going to be made in the pan while I cook the beetroot. So I'm just going to add a few bits of rosemary, and they will crackle and pop. And rosemary is great with beetroot and with beef, so it's a perfect combination. And then I'm going to simply put these beetroots in. Now what I've done is I've just cut them into small wedges so that they're bite size. I'm just going to warm them through, and to add a little bit of sweetness I'm going to add a little bit of clear honey, and this also caramelizes and makes a sweet dressing. So I'm just going to let that cook through for a second, and the honey will become thickened and sticky. Now you're not really cooking the beetroot, you're just warming them through. And don't do this in your wedding dress, whatever you do, or the bridesmaids in their bridesmaid dresses, because beetroot stains and it'll look like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then I'm going to add a little bit of sherry vinegar. You can use balsamic or red wine. I wouldn't use a white wine vinegar, just because the earthy notes of the dark colour are much better with it. And you're going to reduce this down to make a little syrup. A little bit of salt and pepper. And then once this becomes nice and sticky, I'm going to remove it from the heat. So I'm going to add a handful of walnuts. Obviously, if you know you've got people that are allergic to nuts, you can leave these out. It's not a necessity. And then I'm going to remove it from the heat. And I'm going to stir in a little bit of olive oil. Again, this is going to be your salad dressing, so you need a bit of oil. Now I'm going to leave these to cool slightly before I add it to my salad, but what I've got is watercress. Watercress has a delicious peppery note to it, which is perfect with the soft beef and with the sweet beetroot. So that's why I'm using that. So I'm going to pop the beetroot and all that oil, vinegar, honey and all their natural juices into a bowl and let them cool slightly. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of goat's cheese at the end. It just adds a creaminess to it. So I've taken my beef out of the oven and I left it to rest for about 10-15 minutes, and this just helps keep all the juices in and stops it becoming dry once you cut it. And then I've just started to thinly slice it. Now this is the great thing, because this is going to be part of a buffet or a meal. It's not going to be that everyone's going to be having massive amounts of it, because fillet beef is expensive, but it goes a long way if you can slice it as thinly as this. So I've got my beetroots that have cooled down a little bit. They're still warm, they're not cold or chilled. And this beautiful dressing in the bottom that's coating them is made in the pan earlier. And I'm just going to add my watercress to it. If you don't like watercress, you can use baby spinach or rocket, whatever you like really. And I'm just going to turn it over in the dressing a bit more. And then if I was doing this, I'd get a big platter or a lovely plate like this, pile up the salad in the middle, and make sure there's a bit of everything on there, a few of the walnuts, lots of that lovely tangy dressing with the vinegar in and the sweetness from the honey. And then just to give it another colour and a bit of creamy texture, just going to add a little bit of goat's cheese. Now this is really mild. And then I'm just going to pile up some of these ribbons of the beef on top. And then as everybody comes round, they can help themselves to a bit of salad, a bit of beef, and it's a perfect little accompaniment to the rest of your buffet. Thanks for watching, and if you've liked this recipe, why not subscribe to the Brideas channel and like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Join me next week for a delicious lemon shortbread which make the perfect wedding favours.